The Center for Procurement Excellence is a nonprofit member organization with a mission of educating, promoting, and advocating for better RFP processes. Join CPE today and make your RFPs faster and more transparent. Membership also includes discounts to all of our training and networking events. CPE hosts a variety of virtual and in-person networking and training events throughout the year. Visit our website to get signed up. CPE Speakers Bureau is available for your regional and national meetings and professional conferences. Contact us to learn more.
Welcome to Ask the RFP Doctor, CPE's monthly web series where we discuss the latest best practices in procurement and supply chain management.
Handling large IT hardware buys with different scope packages, and I'll kind of explain what that means here. Now, the nature of this project here is based on something that happened in the state of Alaska. And as we can imagine, the state of Alaska is huge. And because of that, in the very rural parts of the state, it's difficult to make sure there's enough connectivity to people in various parts of the state. So the state had very complex IT hardware upgrade to do for telephones, for video services, for help desk, and other related services tied to that networking. So very complex, very diverse project. So I was talking with Jason about this. We want to make sure we share these slides. When we think of down south, here's how most of us think of Alaska. It's south of the US. In reality, we know it's not like that, but this is our typical perspective. And as Alaska likes to say, here's the actual perspective of how things work. And just to give another perspective here, here's how big Alaska is. This is to scale, overlaid on top of the US, of the continental US. So Alaska is huge, right? And I think we all forget how big it truly is. And providing networking services and different things across this area can be very challenging to do that, right? So our role here, we were to basically to personally assist them and to do everything that needs to be done with part of this overall project. So we personally help them roll out this project, and we talk about some of the lessons learned we had from this example, right? So four different areas: networking, telephones, video services, and a help desk feature. Four main components that are under the overall umbrella of this particular project. So the project, $50 million 5-year contract. This is based on historical data. Again, here's the scope of services that they were meant to do. And here's some of the existing conditions: 500 access sites, 77 video endpoints, lots of phones, lots of data centers. And you really, the biggest challenging thing about this, and I see Victor's on here as well, and he can certainly speak to this, is just how geographically dispersed the state's employees are. And the breadth of the services that need to be provided to them is really quite substantial. So this is the scope of the project here, right? So when we thought about how to do this, there's some other confounding factors here that we could think about too. In the state, there's basically two vendors that provide these services. And I'm not going to exactly say it was the light versus the dark sides here, but they basically compete in every single facet of the business. They're tooth and nail on all sorts of projects that are in this area. They compete fiercely against each other. There's all sorts of other politics, other political issues involved in this particular contract. So it's a very well-watched project, lots of eyes on it. Because of that, we had to make sure that things go well, especially on the procurement side of things, right? At the end of the day here, we want to make sure that this is a positive experience for everybody that's involved with the contract. Okay, so it's like a game of chess. How are we actually going to deliver this procurement? How are we going to actually deliver the service that need to be done with this? So what we need to think about with this here is, how do we divide up the scopes and yet leverage or maximize economies of scale? So that's essentially a chess game from a procurement standpoint, is how do we actually do this effectively? We can put everything together here. And I see Victor posted the RFP or the contract document. Thank you very much for posting that. So we can put all the scopes of work together in a single RFP, or we can split that individually and do separate individual contracts. What the state actually did on this particular project was to put everything in a single RFP, but then the vendors could propose individually how they wanted to propose and provide cost and services on their project. Now, it's to the benefits of the state and to other people involved in the procurement side of things to have all this done by one particular vendor, because it's less contracting, there's one team to deal with. It's just a little bit simpler to deal with that. But at the same time, they want to maximize or leverage the expertise of the vendors that come in here. And if they're really good at one particular scope of area, then we want to provide them an opportunity to provide, what that scope of work might look like. So hopefully that's clear here as to what how we actually structured this thing. So different scopes of work, and this is essentially how we did something like that. And see, Shane has also done something similar with their radios and tower systems, right? So they came in and we had one RFP, 4 different major scopes of work, and they had some great proposals here. We'll kind of talk about the results of that. Now, one interesting thing that we saw here is that we had the data network part of the scope of work. And if you look at the overall cost here, we have firm A and firm B. Firm B's cost is at $4.8 million, and firm A is at $8.4 million. So basically double the price for essentially the same scope of work. So firm B here is clearly the leader at this point in time after we went through the evaluations. Their cost is 45% less. And so the main thing we think about is that in procurement, the first thing we tend to think when we see the situation is, this is fantastic. I'm going to save a bunch of money, less than I thought I was going to have to pay for this. Let's sign the contract and get moving forward here. However, what we have seen in all the different projects that we work with different procurement organizations on is that this might be good, but we don't know for sure. We have to actually verify as to what's going on here. So my advice to all of you is that anytime you see major discrepancies on the financial side of things, that's like a Star Trek red alert status. Something is not fully understanding as to what's actually going on here. You want to understand why the costs are low and not just accept that as face value. You have to do almost like a private eye. You need to investigate to understand what's actually going on here. Okay, so major difference in cost. We asked the firm, well, your cost, we basically said your cost is lower by quite a bit than everybody else. How do we know that your cost is accurate, especially compared to where our previous budget was at? So the competitor came back and said, well, the first thing is that if you look at our costs compared to what other states have done in the lower 48, it's basically right on par. The average price for their service in the lower 48 states was about $30,000 for 60 months. The state of Alaska's budget for this was $208,000, and their proposed price was $40,000, right? So this is basically aligning with what other states have done, and the state's budget was just very high to this too. The second thing they did is they had done similar services for the local school districts on this particular project. And what they saw down here is that they had their rates from a previous contract, and they said, well, here's what it used to be, $23 per megabyte. And I'm sorry, the previous rate was $160 per megabyte. And now in the 2014, which was a couple years before we did this, it dropped to $23 per megabyte. In other words, the cost of doing services has substantially declined since this project had gotten started, right? So as a procurement person, as a state looking at this, we're now feeling, okay, now I'm beginning to understand why the cost here is so much less. So we've done our investigations, they provided data, they provided names and contacts, we contacted them, we verified everything. We have a much higher degree of confidence that the cost they're telling us is going to be is accurate. So big differences. We can see the overall difference about 78% less, and that's a good thing. So when you think about that, when you actually develop a procurement process that looks to leverage the expertise of the people we're hiring, there's big benefits to gain out of that. When they actually ended up, they awarded one company 3 of the contracts and a different company the networking side of things. So they awarded to basically 2 different companies, 3 of the 4 to 1, and then 1 of the 4 the other one here. In summary, of the differences that the state gained or the benefits to the state by doing this is huge savings, cost savings across the board. And of course, the fact that we had performance gains as well in terms of network speeds and different technologies. Now, some of this because obviously, technology has improved. In fact, technology rapidly improved, right? Moore's law. Moore's law says that technology improves by an order of magnitude of 2, or basically doubles every 18 months, right? So the state was definitely benefiting from that. But if we think about some of the key things here with this particular contract, is that we had time up front to clarify and plan what we're going to do before we actually did it, right? We had a set time here. We're going to go through and verify and understand here's what this project is actually going to look like. And without that, it's really hard to be comfortable in how we did that. In fact, I remember on this project, I was working with the state at the time. We're in the meetings. I'm working the main technical person from the owner side of things. And our conversation centered on the fact that, well, how do we write the scope of work for this one? And my recommendation to them was essentially that we need to write it such that you can use expertise to beat their high. So what that means to them is that as you put together your statement of work, your specifications, is do the best you can with what you have available. We know it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. We're trying to use expertise. We're not trying to tell them how to do their jobs. And I'm telling you, when we were in the meeting, I was talking to this technical person. His whole demeanor changed because it went from extreme stress to very little stress. We think about the fact that I need to do the best I can, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And when we have this philosophy of I want to use expertise for the people I'm looking to hire, that can really make a big difference. So in summary for the state, using this expertise was key. Fair, open, transparent, especially in a very complicated, politically charged procurement like this one here, adhering to the CP principles of fair, open, transparent, value, and integrity is really, really crucial here. And we absolutely adhere to that, and things went well. Pre-planning is also crucial for these types of projects.
This has been Ask the RFP Doctor, brought to you by the Center for Procurement Excellence.